doing very well. It's great to be here on the CJBK.
What's amazing is you're not physically here. You're on the phone here. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from India, which is like thousands of miles away from where you are.
Here's the one thing that I know about India, okay? I think that they're called gulab jamuns.
Yes. Oh my God.
I know.
I know. You know about those.
Yeah, those are my favorite.
It's an amazing dessert. Syrupy, sugary, and yeah, it's something India is famous for.
Well, I only have one a week because I have to watch my waistline. You see.
That's perfect. Yeah, they can be very, very tough on your waistline.
Now, Nabila, I'm going to ask you a personal question here, and I will preface it because with the statement that the reason I'm asking is because it's important to the discussion. How old are you?
I am 22 years old.
22 years old. You've written a book called Wish Upon a Time. And what are we examining in this book?
This book is, it's essentially, I would call it a political fairy tale. It's an adventure fantasy novel for young adults. It's essentially a world of magic. It's about the world of human imagination and how young people are sometimes confronted with violent ideology and terrorist violence that without being in a position to do something about it, they have to deal with those issues anyway. So it's a very different kind of a fantasy, an adventure fantasy novel, which has political undertones, and I hope that it's going to start a conversation with young people all over the world.
What is amazing is here in Canada, and I don't know how it is in Calcutta, but here in Canada, this is not a 22-year-old conversation.
Right, and it should be. I think it's very important because our generation is growing up in a time where these issues have become the really important and challenging issues. How we are engaging with people from across the world, from different communities, from different nations, and we're all coming together. And young people have only so much of a voice. I mean, we're not diplomats, we're not world leaders. But what we can do is we can raise our voice, we can write about this, we can speak about it, and we can use human imagination to come up with, answers, to at least come up with peaceful messages that can say something to people who are in power about, what we really want.
Now, you live in a part of the world that, from Canada's perspective at least, seems a little bit more politically charged, let's say, and you deal with a lot more of these violent. I want to call them terrorists, but that's not necessarily the right word. You deal a lot more with the serious issues than we do here in Canada. Why is it that you felt the need to bring this to everybody's attention?
I think that the entire world is facing, the challenge of violent terrorism, and especially that of violent ideology. And although there are areas of the world that, of course, are afflicted more by it, but as a human community, I think we're all united because, sometimes this violent ideology is justified on false grounds. It's justified in the name of, for example, religion or particular ideology. And I think that it's important that, people from all over the world have a dialogue on this, so that we know, we're wrong when we associate violence with a particular kind of ideology, etc. And that violence is what violence is. And I think here is where, Wish Upon a Time, as an effort by me, as a young writer from a country like India, I'm trying to speak out. I'm trying to do my bit, so that this peace building campaign around the world, is hopefully gains something by my message and my word in it.
We're speaking with Nabila Jamshed. She is author of Wish Upon a Time. You can check her out at nabilajamshed.net. Just incredible. Yeah, it's just an incredible message, especially coming from a 22-year-old. But here's going to be my challenge put out for you, okay? And certainly I am an ideologist. I'm an idealist. Yes. I want the world to be one big happy family, but I also know politically that will never happen. How do we manage to get somebody in Canada interested in what's going on in India?
I think that I am more of an idealist in the sense that I do believe that I don't think conflict would ever go away, but I think conflict can be a positive thing in the sense that if we were to debate every issue, if we were to argue about it instead of letting it come out in more violent ways. And like I said, I do think that the issue of global violence and the issue of what some people mistakenly call the clash of civilizations has become so important to the entire entire world, that I do my best. I do think that people around the world are becoming conscious of the role that they have to play, irrespective of whether they are in Canada or in India or in the United States or in Europe or anywhere else. But I think there is a growing consciousness, especially among young people. And so for me, to sort of put this message across in the form of a fairy tale, in the form of an adventure fantasy that, hopefully will start conversations among young people about this sort of thing, and that they will grow up believing in the ideal of peace, that they will grow up in a more hopeful world and believe that they actually can play a role in doing something about it.
Well, you were writing the book. You like you said, it's kind of in a fantasy setting. Were you worried that maybe some of the issues were going to be maybe taken too lightly by the reader?
I think that this is, at some level, it's an exciting book. It's a kind of a thriller adventure. You have spells and incantations, and you have magic. And at another level, it's also it's a direct metaphor. As a writer, I'm very passionate about metaphors. So for me, every little thing in the book, every location, every character, every place, every for example, the legendary scimitar, which is this weapon of unmatched power, has some sort of parallel in the most important and central issues and objects and places and etc. in the real world, at least especially the violent ideology and the fact that the terrorists are villains. So for one thing would be, for a lot of kids can enjoy reading this book for what it is on the surface, which is that it is a fun adventure fantasy, which hopefully, if I may be permitted to use the adjectives, it will make you turn the pages and find out what happens in the end, and there's a twist in the tale in the end. But at another level, I think for the slightly older kids and for the teenagers, the young adult audiences will also find it would find it challenging and entertaining and stimulating, perhaps, to look into where these metaphors are going, to look into the puzzle, to see what stands for which issues, and how these parallels are reflected in the real world and in the times in which they're growing up. So I think it would do both things, and I'm hopeful that people will read it in two senses as well.
Where do you feel that the responsibility lays? Does it lay on the shoulders of the parents for them to say, listen, kids, you got to get reading this stuff and get educated about what's going on? Or on the kids to say, I realize that my parents, maybe their philosophies are old hat. We need to get up and get going here?
I think it's more on the responsibility of the young today, and I think for me personally, from what I have seen, the world of the internet, people reaching out to each other, people blogging and talking about these issues, a lot of young people are already enthusiastic about having their voices heard. So I think that of course parents have a certain role to play. Families, of course, socialize children as they're growing up, but I think a lot of young kids are taking it upon themselves, and it's a fantasy novel. It's a fairy tale. In my opinion, I'm hoping it's contributing something to young adult literature in general. So for one thing, kids are going to be interested in reading a fantasy novel which is a little different, and on another level, I think that some of them will pick it up because they think these issues are becoming central to their very existence.
Nabila Jamshed joining us, author of Wish Upon a Time. You can visit her online, NabilaJamshed.net. I'll just spell that just in case there's a little bit of confusion. NabilaJamshed.net. And please go to that website and certainly read what Nabila has to say, and pick up the book as well, Wish Upon a Time. Before I let you go, I've got to ask you what you feel is the number one the number one topic that should be discussed. What should be brought to the table first and foremost when we're having a discussion about world issues?
I think that what needs to be I don't think it's so much of a topic as a mindset that needs to come into every discussion we have on world issues, which is that of mutual tolerance, which is that of keeping your eyes and your mind open, which is that of coming to the table understanding that the person opposite you is not just defined by their particular identity, but is defined by an entire worldview that you must understand before you can move ahead on any issue. So I don't think that the issue so much is important as as addressing every single conflict and every single issue important to the world today with a more open mindset, with a more tolerant mindset, and definitely ending violence, because violence is absolutely under no grounds justified for absolutely any individual or organization to ever take up.
Liz, it is an extremely powerful message and an absolutely daunting task to try to pass that along to the world. You have done a wonderful job with it. Where do you go from here?
I'm very fond of literature, so I think I'm going to be a full-time writer of this as well.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I'm studying international relations, so being a peace builder is something that I think, in my small way, as one person, I'm hoping to do my best that I can, being a peace builder and being someone who can contribute her bit to conflict transformation, whether it is through the written word, through messages, through some sort of groundwork diplomacy. I'm trying my best, and this is what I strive to do for the rest of my life. But readers can expect to get a lot more fun literature, a lot more engaging literature, something that will start a lot of conversations and a lot of thinking in young kids and adults around the world, hopefully, from me in the future.
Well,
that's the plan for now.
You've given yourself about a 20-year head start, because most of this stuff doesn't even dawn on people, especially in Canada here, until usually they're into their adult life. I appreciate you bringing it to the forefront, and appreciate you joining us here in London, Ontario, all the way from India.
Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate you having me here and for giving me the opportunity to speak with you, Al. It's been a delight, and to speak, to reach out to London, Ontario, Canada, and a different part of the world altogether. I mean, it's such an overwhelming thing to know that you can be in India and you can have a small message from you heard, 7 oceans across. So that's quite